Well, welcome, Power Partners. This is our informational playground. It's Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. And we are also in collaboration with Voice America and the Libsyn channels. I am your host, Cynthia Bryan, and I hope to seed and stimulate and support space for positive, meaningful conversations in this always hopefully upbeat lifestyle show. The miracle moment for today is brought to you by Be the Star You Are. You can visit the website bethestaryouare.org. And this is by Alan Cohen, an author, and I call him a philosopher too. He's been on this show a few times. Knowledge is not the same as wisdom because facts are not the same as truth. You have to really think about that one, but I really like it. So, what we're talking about today in our first segment, we're going to discuss the challenges facing teens. I mean, there's a new survey saying that both girls and boys say that it's really important to find a career they enjoy. They want to make money, they want to cultivate friendships in the future, but they are very stressed about grades and the pressures to perform as well as many other issues, and a lot of it pertains to social media. And in our second segment, did you know that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the CBD officers, are authorized to search electronic devices of any international traveler entering or leaving the United States, and that also includes U.S. citizens? You could be detained based on information found on your electronic devices. I know I've been trying to do some travel tips for people because the travel season is ramping up. Summer is always a real high travel season. And with the changing rules constantly, I think it's best that we know what we need to do. Well, I don't know if any of you have watched the Netflix series that is getting really rave reviews, and evidently it's going to have a second season, Plan B's, and talks about it. It's called Adolescence, and it's a British show um, based on a killing of a 13-year-old girl by a 13-year-old boy, and just the difficulties that teens were facing. And the writers and producers say it's not based on any one true story. However, it is based on a compendium of events that have been happening in the UK with this rise of the manosphere and people, especially boys and young men, getting interested in lots of misogynist thoughts. So I found it very interesting, and I thought that talking about teens, since Be the Star You Are, we work to empower youth at risk and teens to be the best they can be and increase their literacy and to be more balanced. But no matter who you are, even as a parent, you always kind of feel that your teen's a mystery. And there's a lot of new data out there that might give us a better look inside their world because both teen boys and girls, they're facing the same issues. They have a lot of school pressure, they have mental health concerns, and they might need different kinds of support. And that is according to the Pew Research Center survey. One of their objectives with the research was trying to understand the challenges that teens are facing these days, and specifically how they experience school and whether those things are differ by gender. So the work that the Pew Social Trends Research has done is on men and masculinity. And part of that conversation involves what's happening with boys and girls. Now, this particular survey was conducted September 18th through October 10th with teens of 2024, with teens ages 13 to 17, and there were 1,391 teens in the study. And while the data did show differences, among the girls and boys, such as girls reporting more of a pressure to fit in socially and to look good, while boys said they felt that they should be strong and they should be good at sports more often. Other than those couple big things, many of their perspectives were rather similar. Both genders said it was highly important to find a career they enjoy. They want to make money and they really want to have friendships in the future. And, we are prone to negatively stereotyping teenagers as superficial in their interests. And the results are an excellent reminder that teenagers are serious about the schoolwork they're doing and that they're looking ahead to their careers. Now, I can attest to that with the youth that I work with on a daily basis with Be the Star You Are. At least the kids that are, and they're teens, that become volunteers with Be the Star You Are, or become reporters with Express Yourself Teen Radio, or become book reviewers or researchers or content providers, or, come to the events, or they're a videographer or a photographer. They really tend to want to give back and to excel and to get along. But the pressure to perform for both boys and girls is very high. They feel a lot of pressure to get good grades, to be, a good student, to be a good person. And it's difficult for them to look into their future. And for those who didn't see it as an even split, both teen girls and boys perceived girls are getting better grades and being favored by teachers, according to the report. And what they perceive matches existing data that shows girls on average do tend to get better grades than boys. Again, this is from the Pew research of 2024. But grades aren't everything. The success of of girls in school doesn't have to mean that the boys are doing worse. The disparity might be a sign that something in schooling isn't working for boys as well as it should. Now, schools are set up in such a way that kids who sit still and are less impulsive are going to do well. And we know that there's a big difference in brain development in early adolescence, and that the part of the brain that's used for impulse control and critical thinking develops much later in boys than in girls. So we're teaching to half the audience, and we need to broaden the way we approach education, is what some of the researchers say. More activity and teaching styles that incorporate hands-on learning would help teen boys do better academically. And then when it comes to supporting in friendships, there's really good and bad news there when it comes to what teens said about their friendships. Only 2% of the kids that were interviewed said they didn't have any friends. And while that number of those without friends would ideally be zero, it is lower than expected. Now, friendships are especially important in adolescent years because teens are at that age when they're really less likely to turn to an adult for support. They might talk to a coach. They might, maybe if they have a favorite aunt or uncle or teacher, but they're naturally going to reach out to their peers before looking to an adult. And peers can be the great ushers to adults as needed. But if you don't have someone that says, hey, this is a problem, you need to go talk to a grown up, then that's when the danger really starts. And although most boys reported they had a close friend they could turn to support, the number was lower. It was about 85% compared with girls that was about 95%. And they said they could turn to a friend for support. And we need to try to lose that mythology that boys don't make close friendships. We need to take very seriously that we continue to socialize boys to feel that vulnerable emotions are okay. We don't want them to think they're unacceptable. And so long as we're making boys feel that being vulnerable is unacceptable, we are going to have boys and then adult men who do not have a strong social support, and everyone deserves to have a strong social support. Now, there are different expressions of mental health. There was a difference in how teen boys and how teen girls perceive their struggles. What was said by the researchers is that girls were more likely to experience anxiety and depression, while boys were more likely to struggle with substance abuse, fighting class disruptions. Now, those findings don't mean that one group is experiencing mental health concerns and the other is just facing a behavioral issue. Under mental health, we have to fold in the finding that boys are more likely to engage in physical fights, fist fights, etc. And one of our well-established understandings as clinicians is that when girls are in distress, they have been socialized to collapse in on themselves. So they actually become more anxious, depressed, whereas when boys are in distress, they act out and then they get themselves in trouble. So while disciplinary action might be appropriate when a teen is abusing substances or acting out, we have to know that it's important that such punishment is paired with an understanding that the behavior that they are experiencing is coming from suffering, and we need to address that suffering. So when we see anger in a teenage boy, we think, oh, well, that's not depression. But you know what? It really might be depression. So if you see a young boy who's acting very reckless, you might say, "Oh, he's just a daredevil," or he's trying to think he's cool or whatever. But that behavior could be a reflection of feeling untethered to other people. So we cannot presume that boys feel less anxious and less depressed. And very important to note is that both sexes do have suicidal ideations. And when, as parents, as counselors, as grandparents, aunts, uncles, coaches, guardians, whatever it is that we have teens in our life, we have to really be aware. And we do have to let the young people in our lives know that they can come to us and talk to us, and we're not going to judge them. For all the years I've been working with teens as an acting coach or a mentor, one of the things that was really important to me is to let the kids know that whatever they said was going to be completely confidential, unless it was something that I absolutely felt was they were in danger for their life or they were going to hurt someone else and then needed to talk to somebody else. But by giving that confidentiality and really listening to what the young people have to say, I was able to, I believe, help so many kids kind of navigate these tough teen years. I mean, we're filled with a lot of emotions. Our bodies are changing rapidly, and social media is not helping. We don't have to go into the effects of social media because not only have we done that, but it's been done so many times. But all of these algorithms are meant to feed more of the same to kids, and that can be really, really dangerous. So the bottom line is let's pay attention to what the kids' actions are. Let's listen to what they say. And let's also be aware of what they don't say and what they hold in or how they act out or just act, because that could really tell us that they're reaching out, that they're hoping for help. And we as adults need to be there for them, because I find teens to be absolutely awesome. And I feel so privileged to be able to be working with them. And it's really important, I think, for all of us to embrace teens because they are our future. Well, you're listening to Cynthia Bryan. This is Star Style, Be the Star You Are. We'll be coming back with a business bite, and then we're going to talk about some U.S. customs and border protection rules and authorizations. Don't go away. There's more to come. More companies are realizing that if their employees enjoy enough time with family and loved ones, that their long-term productivity at work increases. employers can take steps to make the workplace more supportive and flexible. Make it acceptable for people to talk about their families. With so many single parents and a majority of women in the workforce, everyone from the CEO to the janitor is juggling to have a life of balance. Open communication about family commitments and work duties is imperative if we are going to transform and transfuse our culture with family friendly companies. Your children and your company will be the real winners. Implement balance in your personal life for a better bottom line. Remember, you're the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Bryan with another business bite from Starstyle. For more information, visit Cynthia Bryan, Bryan with an I.com. Well, we're back. You're listening to Star Style, Be the Star You Are. We're coming to you on the Voice America Network in collaboration with Libsyn. I am your host, Cynthia Bryan, and our program is brought to the airwaves under the auspices of the 501c3 charity Be the Star You Are that works to empower women, families, and youth. So, what I want to talk about in this segment, because I'm doing quite a few travel episodes because it is becoming the season of heavy traveling, and the rules are changing so quickly. And with what's going on in the governments around the world, including ours in the United States, it's a little scary once you leave home because you want to make sure you'll be able to come back. So, while this is historically rare, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which is called the CBP, the officers there, they are authorized to search electronic devices of any international traveler or even an American citizen entering or leaving the United States. Now, recently, there have been some very high profile cases of individuals with valid work visas detained and removed from the United States just based on information that was found on their electronic devices. In a previous show, a previous segment, I talked about how one of the things you do not want to wear for many countries is camouflage clothing, because it's only the military. So there are some other things that you should be aware of because you don't want to get stopped or turned away at the border, or you don't want to have a ticket to go on a flight somewhere and not be allowed to leave. So, the legal currents provide important recommendations for travelers. And this is just a brief overview of the nature of electronic searches, what their key legal requirements, and the recommended best practices are for international travel. And I want to just give you some key takeaways. You want to really think critically about your electronic devices and the information that they contain. Do you need to bring that device on your international trip? Is the first question you want to ask yourself. Does the device carry any information or data that you have an obligation to keep private, such as a privileged or proprietary information? And is there information that you can keep on the cloud and not download to your device? You have to think about the data on your device the way you think about packing your luggage. You got to be thoughtful about what you pack on your phone or laptop. You don't want to keep any information, data, or files on your device that you would not be comfortable showing to a U.S. government official. So, if you have comments on there that are political comments or that could get you in trouble, you better delete them, put them on a flash drive, keep them at home or at your office. So, know what's on your device and keep a very clear separation between information stored on your device. In other words, what is accessible in airplane mode, and therefore it's also accessible by the CBP, as opposed to information that's stored remotely, like on a cloud, and that can't be accessed by the CBP. So also remember that trash, recycle bin, and deleted folders are still accessible in airplane mode. Think about that. in airplane mode, trash, recycle, and the deleted folders, they're still accessible. So you need to get rid of them, get rid of them. Be mindful of what is posted on your social media accounts. Don't post anything you would not be comfortable showing to a U.S. government official. And you need to know your rights. You do not have to unlock or enter passwords for your electronic device, but CBP can confiscate the device for several days while they use forensic tools to attempt to unlock it. So that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I mean, maybe it's best for you to unlock it, enter your password, and let them have it, especially if you have nothing on there. Otherwise, you could just be denied access to leaving or denied access to entering the country and have your device confiscated for who knows how many days. Now, international travelers do not have the right to counsel at the US border. So that means international travelers do not have the right to an attorney when you come to the US border. So if you feel your rights have been violated, you have to document as much information as you can about the event, including names, badge numbers, time of day, details about the incident, and then that and only then can you contact an immigration lawyer as soon as possible. And I found that interesting because I just figured, especially as an American citizen, we do have that right to due process, but you don't have a right to a lawyer at the border. Now, what devices and digital content are usually subject to these border searchers? Now, CBP may search electronic devices which would include cell phones, computers, and cameras. They search these devices not only to uncover potential terrorist or criminal activity, but also to determine the individual's intentions with respect to entering the U.S., including to discover visa fraud. For example, an artist claiming to come to the United States to participate in an artist workshop at their own expense is found to have several photos of their own artwork in their phone, each labeled with a name and a price, along with electronic notes about specific commissions. And based on the electronic device search, the CBP officer may conclude that the artist intends to work as a commercial artist in the United States without a valid work visa. And just because of that, the artist could be refused entry for lack of proper immigration documents and even for misrepresenting the trip. Now, you might have read about the two German girls who were recently stopped. They were on a gap year. They're doing like a world, kind of as so many of us did, is just traveling, figuring out what they're going to do kind of day by day. They landed in Hawaii and were taken into custody because they didn't have ongoing plans of where they were going to stay. That was really scary and horrible. And, they weren't terrorists. And they were just, 18, 19-year-old teens that were traveling. So they can stop you, they can put you in jail, and they can detain you. Now, the CBP distinguishes between basic and advanced searches. In a basic search, the officer will review the content of the device and won't use any external equipment. But in contrast, an advanced search means the officer uses external equipment to access, to review, to copy, and to analyze information stored on the electronic device. And according to their policies, an advanced search requires reasonable suspicion of a violation of law enforced or administered by the Border Patrol, or maybe even a national security concern. And they also have to have the approval of a senior manager. But importantly, CBP officers can only search and access data stored on the device's hard drive or operating system. It doesn't include any storage that is in the cloud. So the officer must ensure that the data and the network connections are disabled before starting the search. For example, by asking the traveler to turn the device into airplane mode and then disabling Wi-Fi. So remember that, that's important. They can't go into your iCloud. Now, according to CBP, probably less than 0.01% of arriving international travelers were subject to this electronic device search in the fiscal year of 2024. But of those, 90% were basic searches without connection to external equipment. However, there are reports that now increased electronic device searches are happening in this Trump administration because they do not want immigration, and you just have to be a little bit more careful. The rights, what rights do you have as a traveler? The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects from unreasonable searches and seizures. Now, this means that law enforcement searches generally require a judicial warrant based on probable cause before an officer can conduct a search. However, that CBP authority to conduct searches on electronic devices at the border is deemed to fall under border search exceptions. So this is a doctrine that permits warrantless searches and seizures at international borders and their functional equipment. And that's the area within 100 miles of an international border is considered a reasonable search. So there are some limitations. And if a traveler refuses to provide access to the device, like by refusing to unlock it with a password, then, as I said earlier, CBP could detain the device and provide the traveler with a custody receipt, and they could retain you for 15 days. But they could keep the information longer if it's part of an active investigation or law enforcement. And more importantly, a foreign national traveler would be denied admission to the United States or even subject to law enforcement actions. And a U.S. citizen that refuses to cooperate will not be denied entry to the United States, but their device will be confiscated. So travelers do have the right to assert that information is protected by attorney-client privilege or confidentiality, in which case the officer could consult a local counsel or the U.S. Attorney's Office before proceeding. So travelers have the right to submit an inquiry or complaint with the Department of Homeland Security, the Travel Redress Inquiry Program. But I don't know. These days, I don't have a lot of faith in our government today because it's just too much in turmoil. I always really believed in it, and I'm hoping we can believe in it again. So the conclusion is international travelers need to be mindful of the content residing on their electronic devices before arriving in the U.S. and be prepared to respond to an officer in a courteous but firm manner related to their rights, especially when the officer requests to conduct an inspection. And this can happen to U.S. citizens as well as foreign travelers. Well, that is our show for today. Make sure you are tuned in to Starstyle, Be the Star You Are every week with me, Cynthia Bryan. We hope that you will get information and advice that can help you change your life and have a better time of it, make your dreams come true. For more information about Starstyle Productions or myself, visit cynthiabryan.com. To get involved with Be the Star You Are charity, visit bethestarur.org. My aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being. Know you already are the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, and celebrate every moment of your life. And try to read a book this week. I've got 11 done, and I'm on my 12th. They are like a garden in your pocket. And until we celebrate next week, I encourage you to be kind, be inclusive, tell the truth, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, innovate. Be your unapologetically authentic self because everyone counts. And more than anything, be the star you are. I'm Cynthia Bryan for Starstyle. I thank you. Again, I encourage you to enjoy this week.